We are live.
Hello, I am Autodassing, and Jared remembered today was Sunday, so we are the Punk Rock Libertarians podcast, episode 352, probably. We're joined tonight with Jared Schneiderman.
What up?
James Babb.
Hello.
And a newcomer to the podcast, but a longtime friend of the show. He's been lurking in our group for a long time now. Are you still? Did you accept my? Did you re-accept my invite? I don't remember if you did.
I actually don't know, but I will make sure to after tonight.
All right. Well, let's welcome Hopian.org's Taylor Shiring. Did I say that right?
No.
I screwed it up.
Yes, sir. No,
Yep,
you're good.
Okay. All right. Good. So he goes by the Yinzer, and so we are platforming our first bigot in a long time.
He goes by the Ginzer, so to speak.
Yinzer.
Yenzer.
Okay. Yinzer.
Okay. So tell us, why do you hate non-white people?
I mean, I think the more controversial thing is that he's from Pittsburgh. Like that's
Which is basically a
worse.
covenant community already.
It's a covenant community of plumbers and steelworkers.
So, it's a perfect place to test out these theories.
No, I kid. So you've been writing for how long for Hopian.org, would you say?
Since it started, my first article and only actually, I've been more kind of just in a more, speaking social media role, I guess now. But
Gotcha.
the first day the site came out, and I was with Jared and the original guys whenever it started. I think late 2019, maybe early 2020, whenever the site launched. So I was in the original Twitter group chat whenever Jared, the guy who started the site, was just like, let's do this, because there's a space for us to really just get the ideas out there, because there was a lot of platforms, like the Mises Institutes, social media platforms, and various more conservative libertarian groups, but there wasn't one that was just dedicated to just Hopian theory, Hopian takes on just libertarianism in general, and just a right libertarian look at society and politics as a whole. So that was just something that we decided to do, and so far, off and on, just putting out articles. We just put out a new one today. We put out a couple last week. So we're starting to get more active on that end again. And Jared and I are probably going to start a podcast soon called No Tolerance. I
can already hear the ringing now.
Oh no, I'm not the one who's going to get us in trouble.
No. Surprisingly, I to our audience who's not checking in, I think you're one of the least controversial people on the website. I went through the Fakertarians group, trying to remember who they were crushing. I guess first when you first launched the website, they went nuts.
Oh yeah,
and then I found out you were associated with it, and I was like, so I want to see what they said, and but it was mostly just about, I think Jared was who they were really upset about.
It was Jared.
It might have been.
Is this Jared?
No. No. He's not associated with the site at all. No.
Okay.
Let's be specific.
I was I don't know if I could be on a podcast with someone that is buddy with Jared.
Would you say it's adjacent to Jared Howe?
Jared Howe adjacent. That's the name of the podcast.
Oh my God.
But no, it's just Jared. He goes by End Democracy on Twitter. He has
fitting.
Yeah, fitting, for that whole space. But yeah, he's the guy who started. He's editor in chief and everything like that, and he's the main staff writer too. No, Jared Howe is no way associated with the site.
Okay, all right. Just wanted to clear that up.
But yeah, I'm the least controversial of the internet Hopians for sure.
So how would you characterize the true nature of the hoppiness of your is it the helicopters? Is it the covenant communities? Is it the physical removal? What's the real attraction?
What stereotype do you most affiliate with?
Or is it just restoring monarchies, or what?
Monarchies are preferable to democracy. Everybody knows that. But
but that bar is pretty low. You know what I mean? So,
but
there's
mine
also
was
a
more,
poke in the eye, which I'm not sure where that would rank. Right.
but yeah, whenever it comes to just like why I consider myself a Hoppian, one, because I would consider myself a person of the like on the right, but I'm not like a hard social conservative. But like whenever it comes to like property ethics, egalitarianism, I would definitely lean more towards the right wing side of things. And what really got me interested in like the Hoppian side of like libertarian theory, where it was covenant communities and like just how, because the whole like how would an anarcho-capitalist society work? I found Hoppe's model, even though it was first introduced by Rothbard prior to Hoppe's writings on it. Hoppe just seems that it's just more popularized by his writings post Rothbard's death.
Yeah, what are the big distinctions between Hoppe and Rothbard?
There aren't many.
What about Borders?
Borders, well, I mean, Rothbard kind of, he switched his position on open borders. Not really. I would say he switched his position because he was like an open borders guy, like we have to be. He kind of was like how Walter Block refers to borders now and argues for open borders, even in a libertarian society, even is what Rothbard's position was prior to the hated 90s Rothbard heel turn, where I think is actually his best era. But Nations by Consent, great essay if nobody's ever read it. Really there wasn't much difference on really Hans's argument for restricted immigration is it's relevant to like the net taxpayers arguments, and that like letting in people who he believes are the rightful property owners in a territory not being able to decide who comes in and out is a violation of the private property ethic itself. So the view of restricted immigration and free trade, now that's a controversial thing even in libertarian circles, but that would be the main distinction / like doubling down on the private borders and government private borders.
So is it? Well, I guess what I'm maybe you can clarify. Like I hear a lot of times people saying like, yeah, we'd love to have a libertarian, thing where everybody's got their private property and we all stay on our private property and blah, blah, blah. But until then, we're going to do this collective ownership communist thing and net taxpayer, and they might vote Democrat, and therefore we're going to need the state, and you got to have a border patrol because just until we get to this other thing. I mean, isn't that kind of typical?
Well, I mean, yeah. I'm not the best arbiter of like the Hoppian position on borders. With it being arguing in favor of restricted immigration while the state still exists. But I would go back to his essay on on free trade and restricted immigration. You can find that on Mises.org, where that particular argument is the one that is made. I believe it was highlighted on the immigration summit that they had a couple years ago, where they talked about Walter Block's arguments and Per Bielen's arguments, and and how that differed from, let's say, a Jeff Deist or a Hans Hoppe, who are more in favor of probably more restricted immigration than just straight up the open borders libertarians.
I mean, do Hoppians regard somebody on welfare as like a drain, like on a valuable institution? Or I mean, because like you hear about that, this like they're not, they're going to be getting welfare and stuff, like that's a bad thing. And do they consider that a bad thing to take, like to come in here and try to like drain money out of the state?
Well, yeah, they would consider if the people who are paying into the system are being robbed at gunpoint, literally, and figuratively, to fund the institution that they're forced to live under. And that institution is using the funds that they contributed to fund those who did not pay in or will not pay in, obviously, as long as they are taking that welfare. And I'm just trying to think. You're hitting me with a hard one at first.
I know this got real serious. I was like, damn.
Yeah, no, I mean that's okay.
You know, we're talking HOPA here, and these are the kind of questions that come up. And I hear these arguments, and I just sometimes I wonder, like, where people are really coming from, because, you know, like I hear this argument. I hear the argument. Oh, yeah, you know, they're going to come in here and they're going to take welfare, and they're going to put their kids in government school, and they're going to drain. They're going to, you know, our government schools will suffer. You know, like, as if these institutions are somehow valuable or like not our enemy themselves. And anybody that takes money from these guys, like, I mean, break the windows and like run off with the fax machine. I don't care. Right.
Okay. And that's where I think that's really where we would divert. Now, while these coercive institutions do exist, and they are coercive, and they violate the private property ethic themselves.
So they're basically criminal organizations, and now we need to make sure they're okay.
Well, to play a little bit of a status advocate here, I mean, I guess you could argue that by increasing the amount of welfare recipients, you give the government more excuse to expand that welfare state, print more money, do all that kind of shit, steal more from the tax from us. Yeah, I mean, like, potentially that could lead to a quicker downfall of the state if you were to, you know, introduce something like hyperinflation, or
like, what if the state went bankrupt?
Overexpansion, or
but
the state isn't going to go to. They're not going to go bankrupt. They're going to. It's either going to be like hyperinflation, or, you know, I mean, that's really it.
While people are being coerced into funding this institution, there are real people involved in this, and obviously, whenever it comes to like the immigration parts too, the immigrants are affected by this if they you know, choose to come into this and are run into this institution. The people who fund that institution have more of a right to its services, even if they are coerced into them, than those who do not.
That's interesting. Say that again.
I don't know if I can, but but
people that fund it have a right to the services of the organization.
Have more of a right to the services of the organization. Like, if your kid is forced to go to a public school now with the, you know, school choice thing going on, Corey DeAngelis is doing some great work over at the Cato Institute, and you know, everything like that to you know, help the, you know, funding students instead of, you know, the teachers.
The money follows movement. The students. That whole thing.
Money follows the students movements, and actually, you know, while a perfect example of that, while there is government funding being allocated for education, would you not want people to have more of a choice, or have a better experience while they have to live under these institutions, than just trying to drive it into the ground and having everyone suffer, even in the short term? The state is a coercive institution. It violates every ethic that I have.
Well, when it comes to government schools, there's obviously a much better answer. You just don't send your kid.
True.
That problem solved. Now what? Now what's happening now? Do you want to save the institution? Well, you've already protected your own child. Do you want to try to perfect the government schools, or do you want to just like help people get out of them?
Well, I would like for as many people to get out of them as possible. But
do we want them to operate efficiently? At knowing what their goals are, how efficient would you like them to be?
Oh, that's a totally kind of a separate argument, but you know, the question is whether you want something to collapse and have people, you know, just suffer even in the short term that funded this, that were funded at gunpoint. Now, I'm obviously not arguing for public schools or the efficiency of public schools. I want the institution to go away, but if someone
were to take advantage of it somehow and that's a bad thing, or I guess that's what I'm trying to get at. It's like, are we saving these institutions, or are we trying to, save people from these institutions?
Well, I mean, that is an important distinction, and really the only argument that I could make that that I still sense, while I do not want these institutions to exist, there would be something such as schooling under a private property society, but like you said, we're talking about end goals instead of what's going on now, like you said earlier.
And we can easily handle what's going on now by just taking our own kids out of the equation.
Right. But you being educated in, the coerciveness of the state and how government schools are bad, that would, having other people's kids, suffer more under that, just because, they coerce people in one way, and their experience could be worse and everything like that. It's not just just a strongly individualistic take whenever you look at something like a giant coercive institution. There is some nuance there in terms of whether you want it to at least be okay for the people that are involved, or if you just want it to blow up. But government schools and the entire nation are a totally different question. You know what I mean? I
guess let's maybe take it back to the border question, right? And this is that like collective ownership, the net taxpayer thing, which I guess it's like basically communism, right? Like this collective ownership concept. We're all part of the commune and have this group collective property right. Is that because we paid for it? We get to vote on it. Is that fair?
No, I mean obviously I'm not arguing for something such as communism, and neither is Hoppe or anybody who advocates for not open borders under the
Isn't the argument like, well, you can't come in here because you're going to use these services that I have more of a right to because I paid taxes. So you stay on that side of the line. I'm going to be on this side of the line where I'm paying for this criminal organization over here. Is that and because I have more right to be here now than you do because I'm funding this thing. Is that a Hoppian position?
I mean, I would say that going back and reading that essay that I listened to earlier says it a lot more eloquently than I can. But if somebody is a part of an institution and say like, okay, we must fund the state because we live under a coercive institution, everything, and then we can talk about like, not funding that institution and then hoping for its collapse eventually. But the people who own the property or who supposedly own the property while living under the state, because ultimately whenever you live under a state, the state owns the property. Now, while do you want I guess it's just a question of, do you want society to function while the state exists, or do you want it not to function? I mean, and that's something.
What do you mean by society?
People, groups of people.
Function how?
Be able
function
to,
in a certain way, or
be able to live their lives with the least amount of coercion or trouble as possible, and be able to encourage as much commerce as possible and peace, prosperity, all that fun stuff. While those people are living under a coercive institution, they should have some right to at least have a say in how that operates, whether it be ideal or not. Now, not arguing for, democratic rule here either, but just saying if somebody is a property owner or a de facto property owner even under that institution, allowing a person to come in groups of people who would indirectly be funding their life, come in and use that institution to their advantage, they probably should have a say in that, because those people, might be not unreliable, but unwanted by I mean, you could say that it's like collective ownership, but it's really not. It's just, private property owners coming together and saying that we don't want to fund these people, or we don't want these people using our institutions. I mean,
okay, so,
there is some nuance there.
Okay, let's stop right there. Sure. So now we're private property owners are deciding.
Yes. That's the argument. It's private property owners can band together.
So
that's the whole argument for covenants.
So the private property owners are going to have a right to be, say, in Laredo, Texas, right? But if you don't own property there, then you don't have a right to be there. You have to be on the other side of the border, or
what is libertarianism? It is absolute private property rights as a legal theory. So
it's also the absence of aggression. So, like to me, that would be the primary function of libertarianism. Say, well, look, we don't aggress against each other. Yes. So if I'm going to impede your travel, then I'm better have a good explanation.
But if you are coming onto other people's property without their permission.
But now we're talking about like a government road.
Yeah, we're getting back into socialized, because that implies that
So we're talking about a government road.
But or the border is now socialized amongst either every American or American property owner, I guess, or every at the very least every American that lives on the border or lives in Texas, or where does that? Like, I've always kind of hated the argument of like, well, you put a fence around your house. Well, I mean, yeah, because my house is my property, right? I mean,
correct.
As much as it can be with the government forcing me to pay property taxes, but it's definitely way more my property than like the border of Texas or the border of Arizona, right? I mean,
yes,
I wouldn't consider that at all to be my property.
But who could make a private property claim to the highway coming from Mexico into Texas?
Me.
Who would have the best property claim on that patch of asphalt?
The auto road.
For Autobahn.
Well, and that's the problem. While something's being coercively funded under a state, those people who assisted in funding that road, whether it be on a federal or state level, had the right to use it. And those.
Okay, so they're because you've paid your federal tax, you get more of a right to use that road, but somebody else doesn't. So, I guess so we're saying that is a collective ownership, like private property right. That's a part of this collective because you were coerced, and therefore, what if you? I think we could all say the federal government owes us something, right? Whether it was some tax they made us pay, they damaged us, they hurt us in some way, and under like this magical world of injustice land, right? There would be we would all get some kind of compensation, right?
Restitution, yeah.
Restitution, or just damages. So, would it be safe to say that the better property claim on that piece of highway would be maybe who has the biggest, you owe me slip, right? Like you owe me the most, so I have more of a say to that land, right? Would that make any sense?
I don't think the amount would really be, on a moral or even, on a moral level, especially, or on a functional level, maybe like, oh yeah, I paid $500,000 in taxes. You only paid $1,000 in taxes. I own this more than you. But whenever these people are being coerced into it, that becomes a totally, that would just be, something.
Well, what if the state took your entire town out with a bomb? Now, maybe your claim goes a little bit higher than the mere tax victims, don't you think?
I guess that would be a more serious example whenever it comes to something like that. But
when it comes to this government what we're really talking about is what do we do with this government property, right? The government controls it. We don't consider it legitimate ownership. It's causing all these problems. Under libertarian theory, it's available for homesteading without a rightful owner. Now, I think Rothbard had some good ideas when it came to stolen properties. Like, best case scenario, you return it to the person it was stolen from. Okay, get the property back to the rightful owner. So if that's not possible, second best is to deny the thief the benefits of their ill-gotten gains, right? Or saying like, just don't let the thief benefit from it would be the second best. Okay. So now you've got the federal government owns this. They've got a toll booth. Wouldn't it be best? It'd be better to just let anybody have at it than to continue to allow the thief to profit from their ill-gotten gains.
Or return it to the Aztecs.
Yeah, and Jeff Deist and Stefan Kinsella just had a good episode on this on the Human Action Podcast about rightful owners, legal principles, and everything like that even under libertarian theory. Then they were talking about the ethics of liberty. The section that Rothbard talked about, where it was like legitimate property claims and everything like that. That was kind of what you were hearkening back to, I believe. Something. The state profiting from something and then having more of a right to use it than somebody who, wasn't an owner or something like that. I don't know. Just because
seems like there's a lot of holes in this collective ownership theory.
I'm just not the best at explaining it, to be honest. There are other people that are. But it's not collective. You really wouldn't say that it's collective ownership. It's just people with legitimate property claims being able to decide what to do while living under a coercive institution. That's
legitimate
really
property claims on a federal highway.
Well,
coming in from Mexico. Is that what we're really talking about here?
Not really. I'm just there's nuance. Saying. There's nuance there, obviously, and there are legitimate arguments on both sides. That's why the Mises Caucus won't take a a stand on open or controlled immigration, because there are real arguments on both sides.
Not from a libertarian perspective, there isn't. I mean, you have to adhere to the non-aggression principle. Somebody's coming down the road and you stand in their way. I'm sorry, but you're now the aggressor.
Okay, but somebody invading private property is an aggressor.
We're not talking. No, we're talking about walking down the road.
Yeah. Okay. Well, are we talking about citizenship, or are we talking about just
walking down the road?
Walking down the road. Well, yeah, of course. That's give me your papers. Of course, that's bullshit. That's why I'm like I always default to open. I default to open borders. Like, I always just say, hey, we're in a system where this like it's crazy. Like, think of it. Think how you're just naturally in your world, like you're just like in your own space, and all of a sudden like this big fucking entity just comes by and just smashes its way through, sets up its own highway through everything, and you had no say over it. And it's just like, well, I don't so now I get to argue who gets to take it. Like, why is it there in the first place? I didn't consent to this highway being there. I didn't consent to this border being there. It was there before I was born. Like, it's like a weird juxtaposition. So if you have property that lines the border, that's all privatized. That should be all privatized. But right now, as it stands, the border is all federally owned. It's the government owns it. And it's like, well, why don't property owners own it?
They seized it.
Exactly. They took it. They took it to begin with. So that should be given to the property owners that are on the border, right?
What property rights?
Right. It's you go down this rabbit hole. It's like, shit. It's just
to protect our collective rights, we're going to have to sacrifice our individual property rights.
Well, Dave Smith kind of go back to what we were talking before. Dave Smith brings up a good point. He's like, well, what? He's like, yeah, the state's illegitimate. It's awful. Its institutions of education are, criminal. But would you rather them be telling your children that capitalism is good, or you're a racist, evil person if you like capitalism?
Why are they telling my children anything? I didn't.
Right. I'm just saying. Hey,
that's that question.
If you're only given two options,
yeah,
right?
but that's a false choice. That's a false.
It is a false choice. It is, but it also isn't. But
the question is, I'm saying it's a false choice fallacy in the fact that, like, if Dave Smith is presenting those as the only two options, then the question needs to be tossed out.
It's
just as foul. It's just as phallic to say that
Phallic.
you can whatever.
Phallic.
This is phallic.
Fallacious.
Fallacious.
Fallacious. There you go. That's the word. That's a word.
Phallic.
So, see what it's on my mind, guys. It's Pride Month.
That's what I said. Phil is our representative.
Yeah.
Otto, stop dead naming me. God damn it. But no,
Phil is your gay alter ego, though.
Right. Yeah. No wonder they killed him. But anyway.
Wow.
All right. I was saying, before I butchered my own sentence. So isn't acknowledging the fact that we can just get rid of government education at this point just as imaginary as saying, oh, we want them to not put out these sheep of this Prussian model.
Yeah, but as
schooling.
Bab says, in most, I mean, it seems like in most areas there are options to not put your kids into public schooling.
That's absolutely the option.
It's very hard.
Well, nobody said it would be. Nobody said government school is valid because it's easier.
No, and trust me, I'm just look at this perspective of the single parent who had just like I'm trapped. Like I have either I don't work and watch my kid and I have nowhere to live, or I go to work and I have to find some daycare for them, which is the government school, which is forced upon you. It's like a system.
No, it's not forced upon you.
But it is though. It is. It's
not.
Because it's a
anybody
system that
they force you to pay for it. They force you to pay to hurt other people's kids, but they don't force you to put your kids in there.
But like Otto said, if you are a struggling single parent, are you going to homeschool your kid and not work? Are you going to be able to pay for that?
Imagine these arguments coming from libertarians instead of like AOC going, we must have these government programs because people just can't do it on their own.
I'm not saying we must.
No, I'm not saying. I'm just
said that.
I'm playing devil's advocate. I'm just saying
it's just I don't really see how it's relevant to the question.
You viewing yourself as an educated libertarian, and you obviously are, and you having these libertarian principles and letting them guide your life. Beautiful, great thing. But there are people around you that don't have this type of education, and do you want those people suffering just because they are not as aware of the problem?
What do you mean
as
suffering?
You are? Well,
what do you mean suffering?
I just whenever we talk about not just even talking about the public schooling problem here. We're talking about, do you want the society to be able to, or, people that live under this coercive state to be able to live their lives, or do you want it to be hell on earth just because they live under this coercive institution? Now, I'm not saying that I don't even think that's
kind of a ridiculous question.
That's what after I said it, I was going to restate it. But there are people that those options aren't available, where homeschool isn't really available to them, or now with the charter school movement, like it's a little bit better.
It's 2021. Online schooling is the norm. It's inexpensive.
Right,
you can choose vendors anywhere in the world. You've got private tutors. You've got a gig economy. You've got online. You've got Ron Paul curriculum. Jesus Christ! For anybody to say I can't, it's kind of sad. It's really sad when you really know what the options are, and that certainly doesn't become an argument for making government schools great. Yeah, do I want government schools to offer be better? No, I don't, because the shittier they get, the more parents make the right call, which is to pull them out. I don't want them to settle for mediocrity. Is that what you mean by wanting people to suffer? It's like wanting the government schools to just continue to deteriorate?
I'm talking about it in an empathetic way of meeting people where they're at right now, not where you think they should be, or because there's not one sentence that you said that I don't agree with and that I don't advocate for. But I'm saying, but there's also a reality that exists where people don't know this option. They live in this mental
that's
cage.
Why we're here to talk about it,
right? They live in this mental cage of the state. And how do you break that cage down? So your method is just let it collapse and get worse and worse and worse. That's true. But these people have been so brainwashed that they think that, oh, well, this just means we need more money, more taxes, more, because that's the only way to.
Yeah, but the Dave Smith thing of
I don't agree with that either. I'm just saying. I'm just talking. I'm just saying about I'm throwing that out there.
Okay,
I don't agree with that. That's like I'm putting this shit out there because you guys.
I feel like he does. Like I'm not trying to shit on Dave Smith a lot, but he does kind of do that often, where he like presents like a false choice like that, where it's like, well, would you rather them teach your kids about how great capitalism, the free market is? It's like, yeah, but I mean, no, because like it's the government school. That's even more pie in the sky.
They'll still find a way to fuck it up, even if they.
Yeah, like I don't. I just how about the option of like they don't teach my kids,
Right, and which is
it's
great.
It's the only correct choice. And I mean, you can like, well, what's the best way to polish this turd? You could debate that forever. Right.
For real. It's like
No, I mean, you absolutely could.
And it's not a matter of money. It just the money continues to go up. The only option is to escape it. Like you're not going to perfect it. You're not going to help people endure it.
But the problem is like if everything in fucking society today, everyone's first fucking solution is, well, it needs more money. It needs more funding.
No, it needs Bitcoin.
There needs to be a law.
It needs Bitcoin.
No, James, they need a law. We need a law to make sure teachers are paid more. We want to give more money for teachers to get paid more because then they'll do a better job. It's cooked into your brains. It's like a self-licking ice cream cone. That's what the state is. It exists to perpetuate its own existence.
And just imagine like libertarians, right? Like accepting that as the way they're going to operate.
Yes.
So we're going to pass libertarian laws, and we're going to get control of this, and it's going to be libertarianism's taught in mandatory government schools.
I got a funny story. I got a funny story about this. So yesterday I was at my brother's house, and he has like every fucking Google. He has got Google Home. He has Alexa. He has all this shit, and I hate it. So I went in there. Speaking of shitty stuff, you guys are talking about what you guys are drinking right now. What are you drinking, Taylor? This is another sidebar. You see, I'm getting derailed on my own.
Bro.
Corona seltzer. I drank a whole 12-pack yesterday by myself within like 2 hours of watermelon. What is it? White Claw.
You drank a 12-pack of White Claw in 2 hours, dude.
This is for Pride
Month. You go
see
a doctor, man.
This is for Pride Month. Like we're all drinking like gay drinks. Like,
no, I've got a pretty straight drink.
What do you got?
Duck pin.
There's water in this.
I have a Switch Doctor. It's an Imperial Sour from Flying Dog. It's 10%. It's really good.
Nice.
Wow. Yeah.
Nice.
But I'm saying,
sorry, I didn't mean to question you.
I can get basic. I'm not gonna shit. I can get my basic up. So I was doing that yesterday. So I was at my brother's house and he's got this Alexa. So I said, Alexa, and he was like, and I'm like, is taxation theft? And it was across the room, and she said, well, according to this website, I forget what website she said. She goes, yes, indeed, taxation is theft. And I was like, yes. So then I asked Google Home. I was like, well, Google Home.
Wow.
Oh, fuck you, Craig.
Craig says sours are gay.
But there's nothing wrong with that.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Homosexuality is approved on this podcast. Anyway.
Across the board.
Yes.
We're not going to physically remove sours, so to speak.
So I asked Google Home. I said, Google Home, is taxation theft? And whatever Google says, according to the website libertarianism.org, you know that website, don't you? I say it right off the bat.
Cato?
Yes.
Cato.
Yes.
Cato.
Guess what it said? It said, according to libertarianism.org, taxation is not theft because we all agree to pay into it to improve society.
Jesus fucking
really?
What?
I kid you not. I wanted to record it. Ask Google Home or whatever, and Google Home will go straight to libertarianism.org. This is why these motherfuckers need to be purged from the party. You fucking
They're not.
suck.
Those people aren't in the party. Those people are.
Yes,
in the
they are.
Beltway.
Yes, they are. That's Andy Craig. That's Andy Craig. He's in my state. He's in my state.
Ew.
That was why. That was why I wouldn't join for so long in the first place. Was because of who was in the party other than the people that I liked. You know what I mean? Because it was just like I don't know how you can take over this leviathan of bad libertarians. And Mises Caucus is doing a great job.
Actually, dude. So you are fake newsing here. If you actually go to the article, I found the article that it quotes.
It literally happened.
Right. Nope. Hold on, dude. So actually, it says it proposes that as an argument that like statists make. It says
so Google
argument.
Home lied on Cato's name, dude.
No, Google
Yeah.
straight up. No, I asked her, taxation.
I'm
She
at
said
the
no.
article.
Taxation is not theft according to libertarian.org because people
That's
in
because
society
they
agree to pay into
dude,
it.
let me talk for a second. So
No.
yes, I see exactly like when I search for that in Google, it's basically the same as asking Google, right? And the first result, Google basically pull quotes from libertarianism.org. It says taxation is not theft because citizens have agreed to pay taxes. But if you go to the actual article, they're presenting this as an argument coming from a statist, and then they reply to it and they say there simply isn't any such contract. The government has never actually written up and offered such a contract, nor has anyone signed it. So, I mean, to be fair, I know it's
That's
Cato,
fair.
but to be
you
fair,
know what? But yet we immediately all believe that Cato would actually do that.
I mean, yeah,
I'm telling you,
track record is
It's
not great.
totally plausible.
Yeah.
Garrett, it ended and said what your last sentence. It ended with that. It did not go into depth and say, well, actually, there's no contract. It did not say that.
You can't blame libertarianism.org
You can't,
for that.
what I'm saying is you can't blame them because it's just Google.
I will blame them.
Google lied on their name. It's fine,
Whatever.
dude. I'm trying to like get over my
We're all
like.
feds.
I'm trying to get over my Cato phobia, and like try and find the good in it, even though everything
there is
about the
stuff in there, but they just can't get away from it. Like the
Yeah.
libertarian argument for gun control, the
Yeah.
libertarian argument for poll taxes, the libertarian argument for like the most idiotic thing.
No, I agree with you 100%. They like every time I'm just like, oh yeah, like Corey DeAngelis is doing great work for school choice, and like maybe we're turning a corner, and then like something like there'll be a tweet from I don't even know, like one of the who's the guy who wrote The Libertarian Mind, David Bowes. Like
Yeah.
I'll see a tweet from it, and I'll just be like, oh, and that's like the guy.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I'm just like, all right, here we go.
He's so weak. God. He was at some event I saw, and he was just talking about like, oh, America is the greatest country on earth, and we're the freest. This, and I'm like, okay, whatever, dude.
Yeah, not a good fan of his. I would say I don't like anything he pretty much has done that I've seen. Every single time like his name comes up attached to something, I'm like, Jesus Christ.
I never had a Cato phase. Did anybody here have like a Cato phase, like a reason phase?
What do you
Nobody
mean?
had a reason phase? Like when people like just get into like libertarianism and they're like,
phase.
Reason.com is like the only place they go to, and like that's like what libertarianism is. You know what I mean? And then there's a lot of people that are like that. I think there has to be because there are so many people who
There's
just
people that get into libertarianism through Gary Johnson.
Yeesh.
Yeah.
Woo.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they're now supporting AOC.
You are 100% correct. There are a lot of people.
But yeah, when you come into the libertarianism through non-libertarianism, somehow like it never works out. But
There's libertarians who support fair taxes.
like Gary Johnson.
Yeah, Gary Johnson. Yeah, right.
Taxation is fair.
Well, that's what I was referring before we started. Whenever I was talking about like when people like the label libertarian, has some issues that come along with it because there are people who live under that who go by that label that you could not disagree with more on pretty much everything except for like, well, I don't even know about taxes. That's like the one thing that we're supposed to agree on. But apparently, there's people out there like it's tough. Like
anti-war is one thing that
Yeah.
I think that us and like the left libertarians or the left socialist libertarians, or whatever they want to call themselves,
I don't know, dude. Some of these lefties were real upset when we moved the troops out of northern Syria and just moved them down, and we left
the Kurdish.
to hang out.
Well, that was just because that was just because of the Orange Man. That wasn't because of any sort of
Letting
principled stand.
Gary Johnson campaigned on a strong alliance with Israel.
Ugh.
He campaigned on that.
Not that I hate Jewish people. Like,
No, he gave a speech. It was
I just hate Jared.
It was an event in Brooklyn. It was like Liberty Fest or something like that. And Gary Johnson was there. This was his first campaign, and he was given he hadn't fully adapted his stump speech from when he was a Republican, right? So he was trying to still like score at the same like talking points and the strong alliance with Israel and stuff. Well, he got called out on it like pretty hard, like at the event, like wow. But yeah. Anyway, yeah.
After that speech, he was. Oh, I'm sorry.
There's nothing that libertarians actually agree on.
That's true. Well, yeah, and that's the problem with the label itself, and that's what I was referring to before it, where it was just like, yeah, like it's a like there's a legal theory and a political philosophy, but then the people who, you know, call themselves it or advocate for it usually don't agree with each other on much, except for well, the groups of people. You know, there's you know divided. You know, there's you know. Hoppians, there's Cato guys, there's, you know, the Mises Caucus types, there's the GOP libertarian guys, you know, that, you know, have different strategies on everything. And then there's people who, you know, disagree with you on like the nature of capitalism or, you know, property ethics in general. So, but, you know, that's a topic for another day, I guess.
Well, do you think when, you know, it looks like the Mises Caucus is taking over the LP? What do they win? What are they going to do with this new power?
Yeah, you know what they're going to win? It's going to say, you know, I took over the LP and all I got was this lousy T-shirt,
and now I have to go to more meetings.
Yeah, I mean, it's doing honestly the best thing. You know, the best thing the Mises Caucus could do if they actually take over the party, and the people who hate them voluntarily leave. You know. The best thing that could happen is people know what libertarianism is again.
But what if they're being confused by people that don't really, you know, understand borders, you know, like government borders, or don't really understand, you know, other aspects of libertarianism? Well,
there's discussions in academic libertarian circles on things like that, but it's just like what is libertarianism is a question that if you ask a normal person, you know, somebody who isn't in political spheres, it would be nice to have somebody representing the party or a group of people representing the party that actually know what they're talking about and can explain it and can have proper messaging.
Right. Well, it used to be based on the non-aggression principle. So when it came time to do the explaining about libertarianism, you would explain the non-aggression principle, you know, and I think that was kind of lost by the LP. Like, I don't know, you know, largely a long time ago.
Right. When they started to sign the paper, right?
When you started vote chasing, when the whole party, you know, decided that Bob Barr was suddenly preferable to anything like Ron Paul or anything else like that, like that's when that shit's kind of the slide. And you think about it, Ron Paul always led off with non-aggression. Go back and look how many videos on YouTube where he talks about the non-aggression principle. He's talking to a bunch of Republicans and shit about that. Yeah, he led off with that. I just don't. It's just this vote chasing aspect of like, well, we have to be this you know, presentable, and I just this pragmatist bullshit. Like, let's go off what David Nolan said. Oh shit, there's a really good quote actually that I posted on the Maryland because I run the Maryland Mises Caucus page. Well, I mean, we just got relatively started, but it was a good post by David Nolan that I want to read here. It's a quote that he said in 2008 before he died, because I think he died in 2010. But he says, when we started out, our goal was to spread the word. It was sort of evangelical to spread the word of liberty out to the world at large. Now we're down to the level of people who I think, for the most part, well-intended, but when compared to those men, they are afraid to say anything that might scare people, that might keep people from voting for us. So it's become a very timid organization, end quote. Like, and he said that in 2008.
How many years ago was that?
2008.
Right.
And
I mean,
how much of that is like well, some portion of that is a product of just like shitty people that just are power hungry, money hungry, or whatever. Yeah. But how much of that is also a function of like the ballot access rules that were introduced, where it's like, well, you do kind of have to get at least like what, you know, in Maryland, it's like 4% or 1% or whatever.
No, we have to get 1% of the gubernatorial race to maintain our ballot access for the next election cycle, which is, but there's two things. You can do all the stupid, tedious bullshit to keep yourself a party and keep a pretty principled, radical, smart radical message.
Yeah,
You can do.
I'm not
these
saying
two
they're mutually. I'm not saying they're mutually exclusive. I'm just
know,
saying.
and
I wonder
as a
how much of
person-
that was a factor in that, but it's probably mostly just like clout
what good
chasing,
is
like
what good is ballot access if the candidates that you have to put on the ballot to get it are not libertarians?
Yeah, that's
Not
right.
That's
Yes.
the $1 million question.
That's what we're trying to change. We're trying to.
You know, it's better to not be on the ballot.
yeah.
Save $100,000. Put it into like targeted advertising campaign on your own, right? Like there's so many alternatives to the ballot access problem, besides like investing millions in millions of this wasteful, ridiculous petitioning. It's just, I mean, what a waste of time and money for everybody involved. It's almost like a proof of work requirement to get on the ballot. Like well, you put enough, cycles in of, generating heat, therefore you're on the ballot. Like it's just stupid.
I know, but I know the whole political aspect of it. I just don't want to. I don't want to cede that ground to the whole two old parties. Like I don't want to do that. I think it's
guess what? They've already got the ground.
They control. I know you're right. They control a lot of it.
They're not letting you on the field of battle.
But the best part is locally, like in the state of Maryland, I know for sure, we're a fucking pain in their side. The Green Party and the Libertarian Party, we piss off the Democrats and the Republicans in the state.
How so?
Wholesale, because they do everything they can to throw rule and restriction after us. They openly complain about us. They blame us why Trump lost. They blame us why what's his face? We had some socialist run in the Democrat gubernatorial race a few years ago. They blamed the libertarians and the Greens for that. They do. So it's like at best we can be their scapegoat, but if you keep our name a little bit relevant in this sphere, we can do little small elections. And to think about it, so within one guy on the Eastern Shore of Maryland, he was running in a nonpartisan race. He's a Mises Caucus guy. As soon as he found out, he was like 2 weeks away from election. He's like, "Oh shit, they're having this election in my town called Rock Hall in Maryland, and it's it's non-party, it's a nonpartisan race. But he's a libertarian, Mises Caucus guy, really principled, and we went into full action. He had 2 weeks, and we sent down a bunch of people to knock on doors. We went down there and we put up we had sign wavings. We paid for stuff ourselves out of pocket. And he beat the incumbent by a landslide in this election. And so now he sits on the town hall, and I don't know what change he can affect, but I think you do stuff like that where you're not having to spend thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, and just at a local level, we can win these races. We can have some type of input instead of just completely ceding the whole ground to the Democrats and Republicans. And I know it's a long shot, it's far-fetched. I'm not going to say they're ever going to see a libertarian president, libertarian governor, libertarian senator.
You're going to change it from the inside?
No, there's no changing from the inside. I'm just going to use this podium that they're giving me. The government says, "Oh, hey, they'll throw us a bone. I'm going to take that bone and try to throw it and get as much attention
Smash their skull with it."
Right. That's what I want to use the LP for. And that's what it's designed for. That's what the original intent by Rothbard and David Nolan and all these other guys in that living room 50 years ago. That was the point of the LP, and not some fucking vote chasing, watered down bullshit, suck up to donors bullshit. And like, I was just at the Mises Caucus. I was hanging out with Michael Heiss, Maj Trey, Angela McCardle. I was at the event in Delaware this past weekend, yesterday actually. Or day before yesterday or something. Yeah, Friday. Yeah, I lost track of days. But we were hanging out there, and it was just cool and refreshing. Spike Cohen was there. It was a great event, and we keep getting these people. These people need to be our messengers, not what the shit they've been trying to force feed us these past few decade or so. Like, we need to have new speakers, new, unafraid, better speakers than me. And if we can just use this one little thing,
like Vermin Supreme. Yes,
Vermin's a troll.
He would be the best candidate the LP ever had. Yeah.
So for anyone who's listening right now, James is holding up his little pipe
sculpture,
Vermin
Supreme.
Vermin sculpture,
glass sculpture,
sculpture that you can smoke out of. He's holding up
that you can smoke tobacco out of.
Yes, tobacco. If you're 18 and older.
21.
Oh, 21. That's right, in Maryland. That's right, dude. That's right.
And as
you
long
make
as it's
sure you
not
pay that
flavored.
tax.
As long as it's not flavored.
And you pay the proper tax on it. Yes. We promote responsible
the responsibly
smoking
allocated tax.
Speaking of, did
percentage.
Biden ever get away with that tax banning black people cigarettes thing he was going to do with the banning menthols?
Oh, the menthols?
Oh, yeah, what happened?
I think they scrapped that pretty quick. It was pretty unpopular. Like somebody put it out there, and then the response was just like, "Oh, this is like actually racist." and they were just like, "Oh shit, I think they're right."
They're like, yeah, right. Why else would he even do it? I mean, it was so obvious.
Yeah,
that dude dude hates black people. Doesn't he?
It's true. Yes, he does. Oh man,
I love the picture at the pool where he's at the lifeguard thing and he's like,
"Oh
this.
yeah, yeah." He's got his hand up. What a creep! He's talking about that bad man. What was his name? What was the baddest man in Delaware? What the fuck's his name?
Corn Pop.
Corn Pop, yes, Corn Pop, yeah, where he threatened to beat a black man with a chain. Apparently, that's supposed to be a fun story about
what
that piece of shit. Yes, that was the whole point of Corn Pop. You never heard that story, man. He conspired with his fellow pool lifeguard, another white guy, to beat up Corn Pop with a chain if he came at him. Like he conspired, and he's telling the story like he's like this fun old cool guy, and oh hey, I'm Mr. Hip. I tried.
Dude, what a freak.
Right.
How about that? Did you see that thing he did? Did we talk about the thing he did where he did the press release driving the new electric F-150? Did we cover that?
Yeah. No.
Where he wasn't driving it or whatever?
Well, yeah. It looked like there was a separate steering wheel, like two steering wheels, and he was like pretending to do this like media event where they're like, let's make it look like the president's a car guy, and we're going to give him a line, and he botched that, and then like it was just this whole like.
That's all he does is botch shit. It's so bad.
And I swear to God, it looked like there was a second steering wheel, and the guy in the passenger seat was actually steering the truck. Like they wouldn't actually let him steer this thing.
That was insane. Like I saw that picture, and I was just like, "This isn't real." Like there's no way there's two. They made a truck with two steering wheels just to make it look like Biden was driving a truck. But that's exactly what happened.
So you get fact check on Facebook for posting that. And they say that actually some companies do put for testing purposes, they will put in a second steering wheel.
Student drivers. Drivers.
But no, they said this is what the fact check said. It said that, but that doesn't mean he wasn't driving that truck.
Just because there was a second person also driving. I mean,
they were driving simultaneously.
And then he couldn't even get out of that thing without making a tasteless joke about like his support for the Israeli like bombing Palestine. Somebody was like, "Hey, can you answer? Can you take a question? About Israel or whatever?" He's like, "Well, if you want to stand in front of the truck, yeah." Oh, isn't that funny? Like, isn't that funny? He's not going to talk about the war that he's supporting, like what in the middle of this Potemkin truck demonstration. Like, I just think it's hilarious what the low quality of stunts they're willing to do with that guy. Like, put some work into it.
Right. Well, let's we're coming up on an hour now. I think we could probably take this over into our after hours podcast if Jared remembers that we still do those.
Oh, I remember. I'll never forget 9/11.
Yeah, hashtag never forget.
Never forget.
But yeah, so but before I do, we move on to that. Taylor, thanks for coming on, and let the good people know who are listening where they can find you.
You can find me on Twitter at T_Shiring SHIRING. Go visit hoppyin.org. We got some good stuff coming up, and hopefully starting a podcast soon. And also I play in a band. If you like hardcore, this is punk rock libertarian, so gotta pitch that. I play in a band called Settle for Nothing, where I guess you could call it just like a beatdown hardcore band from Pittsburgh. And
fucking rocks.
if you're familiar with how Pittsburgh hardcore sounds, we sound right up that alley. Just, hardest shit imaginable. But yeah, thanks for having me on. It was fun. I wasn't ready for the border discussion, to be honest. You threw me off.
I know.
You're
But
Hoppian. Come on. What else? I thought that's all like Hoppians obsess over.
No, I just,
you got to bring your best game when you're on with Babs.
I know. You never know.
You ever see the? You see the Jim Gray episode?
I got a bone to pick with you, Otto, dude. I had no idea.
Ooh,
I know.
After hours.
I would have had my stack of books.
We never know how it's gonna go when James is on.
Oh, come on. We're all buddies here.
Well, cool. Well, yeah, everyone go check him out. Well, and we gotta have you on again. So
sure.
We'll bring you on again, a little bit lighthearted. We won't invite James on
next Gay Pride Month.
Yes, maybe never mind. I should probably not say that. But anyway, but so we're gonna record After Hours podcast. You're gonna stick around for that?
Absolutely.
All right, cool. So we'll get to talk about a few more topics and stuff we had planned for tonight. But if you want to check that out, you guys got to sign up for our Patreon. So for as little as $1 a month, you can get access to all of our back catalog of episodes and the episode we're about to do right after this one. But if you don't like using Patreon, please go over to our website, PRLfans.com. And there's other ways to donate to the show to get you that access to our Patreon subscription. And if you guys want to, please check out our you guys can check out libertariancountry.com. Get yourself a punk rock libertarian t-shirts for sale over there. If you use the code PRL or PRL Podcast, you get yourself a 10% discount. And if you want to spend $50 or more, you guys get yourself a 20% discount with the code PRL2. They have a bunch of new t-shirts for sale over there. Eventually, we'll have some more different types of punk rock libertarians shirts that we're going to be putting out soon. So please go over there and check out that website. Pretty much rocks. And if you guys want to also check out Hidden in Plain Sight by Moral Bob, his podcast, because we're presented. He's our sponsor. Just go check him out. Moral Bob. Go check it out. So until next time, live free.
Or die.
You're slacking, Jared.